evening to our viewers. Welcome to the Evening Review Show. I'm Matthias Ofiku, your host for tonight's edition. We'll be joined in studio tonight by the spokesperson of the Ongos Valley Development Group. Of course, that housing continues to be a burning issue within our society, the affordability thereof, the supply thereof. So there's a lot of stakeholders who are working together and collaborating in the background to ensure that housing is delivered to Namibians. And that's why Mr. Verde is in studio tonight. Mr. Verde, good evening, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Good evening. Good evening.
No, it's always good to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, Ongos Valley, it has become a household name within the housing construction sector. How's it been going? It's been almost 10 years since Ongos Valley came onto the scene.
Well, what we can say is that, yes, it has been quite some time. Of course, if you look from the beginning, when the concept Ongos was actually given birth to, it's now about 10 years. But of course, in terms of construction, we basically just started in late 2019. And then we went through that period of COVID. Now we can confidently say we are now 4 years, let's say just close to 5 years into the whole project since inception. I must also say that we've moved quite very fast. What we have done over the years is that, if just to give you an update, we built close to 460 housing units already on site. We have about 63 families that have already moved in. We are also busy with the Pitananyemba Road. We are basically upgrading the Pitananyemba Road from a single carriage down to a dual carriage, where sort of with the intention that, of course, 140,000 people will be living at Ongos at completion. Now to sort of, alleviate the traffic, we sort of have to also work around the, the road infrastructure. And coupled with that, I think what actually, one of the greatest things about the road infrastructure that we are currently doing is that we are also taking services to the people, including your water, electricity. We are talking of fiber cables also being lined up to go to the side of Ongos. And of course, as you know, over the census just came out. We are now talking of about over 200,000 people living on that side of the B1. So you can imagine the impact that our road and the project is actually having onto the city of Windhoek itself. Yes.
Of course, Ongos recently, I think it was last week or so, you signed a funding agreement with Letshego Namibia, which will enable potential homeowners to get funding through that model.
Exactly.
What is it all about? Maybe just briefly take us through. And why is it so significant? I mean, banks funding home loans has been in existence for many years.
Exactly. Well, Ongos has always been the type of an institution, or the members of Ongos have been the type of members that always would like to solve for X. Our intention is to basically find the Y and the X in the formula and be able to give sort of that figure that actually speaks to the entire function. Now, and I think it's also important for me just to give you context. For example, government employees currently stand at 108,000 government and the total labor force. And Letshego is one of that institution that was very strategic in the initial part, where they came with that purpose, obviously, to serve the government employees. And Letshego have got obviously a deduction code, which also sort of, facilitates the entire processes as far as the security of the loan is concerned, because now deductions will be made directly from the people's salary. Now, and Ongos Valley is in the space, is providing is in the space of affordable housing, where our prices begin from 300,000 to basically 1 million there around. And over the years, the Center for Affordable Housing for Africa estimated that, specifically in Namibia, we have a housing backlog of 300,000. Now the question was always are we solving for when we see developers developing houses here, especially in the country are people that are focusing more on the middle class, developing houses that the middle class can afford, or your higher income people, ignoring the people just in your mid-lower people and those low income earners. Now, with Ongos Valley and wanting to solve for X, we then said, look, let us develop properties that are within the price range, because clearly it could be that the answer is about the supply of the right product or the demand of the right product. And so in answering that, and coupled with what Letshego actually is offering, I think the synergy is just one that is greater. Because now what we are talking about is there will be an advantage of consolidating the debt of the client. Because now you find that the client comes to you and the client has got 2, 3, 4 loans from different financial institutions, paying different interests on these different loans. So which compromises basically the affordability level of the client once a credit assessment is being done. So what we are saying now is, how about if we can consolidate the debt and the client only pays one interest, you understand? Thereby improving the disposable income of the client and also improving the affordability levels for this client for as far as housing is concerned. And I think that is basically really the advantage that this agreement will bring forth. And with a new product that Letshego has as far as the affordable housing also is concerned, I think we are great partners in that regard. And I think the proof is in the pudding.
Well, look, over the years, there's been the issue of low supply of housing into the market. There's also been the issue of affordability. We keep preaching for affordability, but we still see a lot of developments taking place. But it seems the backlog numbers are just not coming down. Yes.
So the question of housing has got a lot of factors that are involved. First of all, really the income position of a person needs to be correct in order to afford that. And we always look back again and say, look, there is always a history. There's always a history to something. And as far as housing is concerned, if you look at the strategy that people sort of introduced right after independence, bringing in the likes of the NHE, bringing in the likes of the Build Together, the Sheikh Dollars Federation, and so forth and so on, you will see that in terms of development, we never really addressed the huge number, tackling the huge number of housing until late in 2011, 2012, when mass housing was introduced, which we believe that mass housing is a beautiful concept. And I think it's one that, if we want to progress, probably mass housing version 2.0 needs to be brought forth, because that is the quantum that we are looking at. Now, let me tell you this. So the higher institutions in the country, I think combined, they have a number of graduates on a yearly basis that speaks about over plus minus 7,000 or 8,000 graduates that gets to be pumped into the market. Now, 3 years down the line, we presume that this 7,000 gets to be absorbed into the market. There will be need for housing. So the number is never stagnant. And if the supply is not correct, we will never address the shortfall exactly. You understand? Because now if we take all the targets of all the institutions together and how many houses we build per annum, we will never really address the issues of housing if we do not go big. Let me, and maybe just to give you a little bit of context, the number of building plans that is approved by the city on an annual basis, it's probably 1,000 plus. And you have 7,000 graduating every year. It already tells you the backlog. So it is important that as developers, I think we need to think big so that we can address that. And because government alone will not be able to do it. And I think we need a cohesive approach in terms of as far as housing is concerned in order for us to be able to address the housing backlog.
You mentioned earlier on that you've completed about 460 houses at the project, and there are 63 families there.
Yeah.
My earlier question really spoke to that,
Yeah.
that there seems to be, the properties are there, but you still have this slow uptake of these properties. So is it a thing of the income, or what is it all about? What are you picking up from the market?
Yeah, so the situation of Ongos, I believe it's a special case, I must rather say. So we have had quite a high number of applications during the process. I think we were almost close to 622 applications that were already approved, were in the process, ready to move in and so forth. But because of COVID, the project was delayed for some number of months. And after that, we have had a lot of back and forth between Ongos Valley and the city of Windhoek and some other stakeholders, which we believe that many of this stakeholder management has actually improved over the years, especially with the city, given the coming in of this new CEO, because there was a challenge as far as the leadership was concerned. But having Mr. Moses Machai coming in and him being very much interested, I think housing is one of his strategic pillars of the city. He really gave attention to that, so that at least, making sure that we move and progress. So in the process, you'll find that because of COVID also, people were hit hard as far as income is concerned. Their positions have changed. So people were forced to cancel somehow. Some people found new places to buy and so forth. But what we are happy about is that we have got now clients almost getting to 300. We are at the final stages with the city of Windhoek. I think we believe by end of this week, we should be able to receive the full takeover of Ongos by the city. And through that process, obviously, a lot of those people that are waiting will be able to move in. And we'll see a different dynamics altogether as far as the Ongos Valley is concerned.
Yeah. Just before we get to that, the takeover and the legislative sort of hurdles that are standing in your way, and also, I believe, other developers as well.
Exactly,
I just want you to gather your thoughts around that, and we head for a short break. And then we'll come and have that conversation during the second half of the show.
Thank you.
Well, to our viewers, wait for a short break. We'll be back. Stay tuned.
Connection. It's in the human touch, the feeling of belonging. It inspires us and empowers us, creates clarity from complexity. It starts new conversations, unlocks the power of advice, and makes an impact on your life. At Alex Forbes, we pioneer insight to provide you with advice that connects your decisions of today to your impact tomorrow.
Oh, welcome back from the short break.
Thank you.
Mr. Verde, you spoke of the takeover certificate, where you indicated that there is some progress being made in that regard. Maybe just for the benefit of our viewers, what is the importance of a certificate of this nature? What does it do? Someone might be wondering, what does this have to do with you delivering houses?
Yeah. So the takeover certificate is actually a document that is being issued by the city or the municipal council in the areas in which you are building, to basically declare that they are happy with everything else that you have constructed in the area, and that in terms of the building regulations and all the standards, you have met them and so forth. So this is it's a document that is normally issued to developers at the end of the project. Now, obviously, when we completed with Ongos Valley, the issue of the takeover certificate was actually outstanding for some time, and we had some back and forth engagements with the officials at the city until late last year, October, I think to be exact, October the 17th. That's when the city signed off the takeover certificate, of course, with some other minor conditions that needed to be met. We are now basically about 6 or 7 months after that, and we believe now many of the issues that were sort of these conditions that were outstanding were now met. And I think we can just thank the municipal officials. They've done quite a good job on it, and there was sort of a great response also. And I think we should be able to complete that within this week. And obviously now transfers can now start happening. At least, Ongos can go live again. Because, this can really, sort of affect, the position of a company, financially. Because, I mean, over time, your money is held up into these assets and it can't be moved. So if transfers happen, banks do pay and people become happy and projects continue. So that's where we are. Okay. That's where we are.
So from a legislative perspective, I know there's been in recent years the push for things such as a rent control bill and so on. What are some of the gray areas that you still think government and lawmakers can look at to ensure that the housing market, there's sufficient room for developers to come in and really provide affordable housing to Namibians?
Without delving much on the rent control issue, because I haven't really been following that much, I think what we require from a government perspective is that we also require to be innovative. Government must be able to be responsive to innovation, into the housing space. Because you will agree with me that 34 years after independence, or 33 years after independence, you are still using the same formula over and over again, and it's not yielding those positive results that you require. I mean, one, I can share with you confidently, government has got 108,000 employees. Government has got one of the best housing subsidies in the country, where on average, government basically sort of pays, and where on average government sort of gives about 66% of your monthly installment. A client only pays the employee only pays about 34%. In context, assume that your rent is your monthly installment is 5,000. Government pays 3,300, and you as an employee only pay 1,700. Now, this is a beautiful housing subsidy, but only about between 19 and 23% of the total labor force make use of this housing subsidy. It just tells you that plus minus over 75% of government employees do not own homes, do not have their own homes. Now, if you are in the leadership and you are happy with these numbers, I think it becomes a little bit complicated. You see, so as a leader, I think you need to listen and request for initiatives that sort of help to change this situation. Because what we want is, and some of those initiatives is like, for example, the rent-to-own model, and not necessarily because I'm the managing director for RTO Housing Namibia, but this is a model that comes in basically to assist the affordabilities, first of all, the affordability levels of our people, and sort of, provide that dignity that was lost, in terms of home ownership. So, but now if the policies are not intertwined, if they are not linked, and you still expect people to provide housing in the same formula that has been working for over 33 years, there will be question marks as far as leadership is concerned. And I think the message that needs to go out there is that let us interrogate these initiatives and see how do we sort of incorporate them into our home policies so that we can change the lives of our people, directly, and thereby impacting the sort of, the entire housing ecosystem in the country. And that is what we require.
Back on the agreement with Letshego, one would ask, some of your clients come from other banks, and some of those who are on your waiting list are from other banks. So how would this agreement, what would it bring that's different as far as affordability is concerned? If I'm a client from Bank X and I've already not qualified to get a home loan, how will this agreement make it easier for say, for instance, the government employees to get a home?
Exactly. So what basically happens is that this agreement caters for everyone. Okay, whether you are from bank Y, bank X, or bank B, it caters for everyone. For as long as you want housing, come through. We do an assessment on yourself. Obviously, we do refer your documentations to Letshego. Given the number of loans that you have, Letshego is able to clear up some of these loans with the bank X, Y, Z, and sort of give you only a consolidated loan.
Yeah.
So it's an advantage to any client, and it does not discriminate. And housing is housing.
Yeah.
We want to provide housing to our people. If you are going to leave, perhaps if you are going to reconsider your options, so be it. Yeah.
Just as we start to wrap up, perhaps just going forward, we spoke about the backlog of 300,000 at the national level.
Yes.
Of course, the issue of housing in rural areas, this is still a major concern because, of course, the funding, the banks, their office, they don't quite seem to want to move into that space. How do we bridge that gap? Because there's a lot of focus on urban housing, but there's still a lot of our people who reside in the rural areas. Of course, they, as much as their finance or credit profiles would allow them to buy a house in Windhoek, but I want to buy my house at my village, but I can't because the banking system is sort of blocking that process. So how do we really bridge that divide between the urban and rural housing? Because I believe that's also one of the reasons why you have this mass urbanization, which then puts pressure on the cities.
So again, what we require is basically a transformational approach and philosophy in the housing space. In retrospect, if I have to ask you, I says, why are banks not funding houses in the communal areas? So you will find that, of course, if the houses don't have proper services and stuff like that, then it becomes sort of a questionable investment overall, because who are you going to sell it to? If should you not want it and stuff like that. So it is quite a cumbersome exercise, but I believe that if the sector can come together and be able to, with a transformational mind, come through, I think some of these challenges can be overcome. I think government and also some of the stakeholders that are involved in the housing space, especially with pension funds and so forth, without mentioning names, I think people are now busy looking at this particular issue to ensure that people in communal areas can also benefit. I think the government housing policy, which is called the HOSOM, I think in short they call it HOSOM, Home Owner Scheme for Staff Members, I think does cater for this type of housing. And I think it's just a matter of understanding, that is required in order for us to be able to change that.
So what would you say moving forward? Of course, you mentioned perhaps us considering mass housing 2.0. How do we go around a situation like that, considering what we know what happened? Of course, we don't have to delve into it. And people have they've been demotivated by such sort of projects. What hope can we instill, especially in members of the public, to say it's not all lost as far as you owning a home one day is concerned?
So I will say that all hopes are not yet lost. We are here, we are young people. Government has invested so much money in us as young people, sending us to schools, be it in the country, be it outside the country. We came back, we said we want now to we want to impart the knowledge that we have learned so that we can be able to solve, we can be able to assist government in solving some of these strategic objectives that they have. And I think what we require is one of these key concepts that was requested is to become advanced leaders. We need to think outside the building. We need to think outside the norm. We need to think outside the restrictions that we have so that we can be able to make a positive impact. But that requires that we have to knock on other doors. We need to come up with new strategies on solving these situations in order for us to be able to address the question of housing successfully. And I want to encourage other developers that please, instead of us just thinking of building 20 houses, 50 houses, let's think big, and let's really act on this big thought that we have in order for us to make a positive impact into the entire ecosystem. And I think from an Ongos perspective, we will be extremely excited to partner up with developers that also think big, where we can be able to build many 28,000 housing units across the country in order for us to be able to resolve the issues of housing in the country. Perhaps this is not a talk for 1 year, 5 years. This is a talk for 10, 15 years. But they say the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. And I think that particular step is now, that we need to change the whole philosophy as far as housing is concerned.
Just lastly, of course, some may say, yes, it's fine for Inocencio to set the talk, let's think big. But land has always been an issue. It has always been an issue for developers, and also the affordability aspect of the final product. What is it that we can do differently?
I think local authorities need to start thinking differently. Many local authorities, they take land as their only gold, and thereby making the price of land very expensive without really looking at an issue to say, look, let me rather give land at a cheaper, either a cheaper price or at a subsidized price, and set up conditions that this development gets to happen within the next 12 months, so that you reduce that baseline as far as the land price is concerned. Because many of these projects, they really do not come to fruition because the price of land in local authorities is just exorbitant. I mean, people are selling you an unserviced erf for over close to 100,000. I mean, when if I have to take 100,000 and then service that particular erven, how much is it going to be? Just the price of an erven is already unaffordable. So local authorities must change. Let's enter into PPPs with these developers. Let's change the method of wanting to make a lot of money from an unserviced portion of land. Let's put up conditions that sort of encourages the developer to be able to develop faster, such that the local authority must look at the benefit that is accrued after the development has been made. For example, your rates and taxes, the house is also built faster, you get your water and electricity, and so forth. This is the thinking that local authorities must have. I mean, having worked in local authorities myself, I know that for land is really one of those issues that are very detrimental in sort of bringing this development to the people. And that's why I think if there are concerted efforts from these stakeholders, we can change the housing landscape substantially.
Mr. Verde, thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you so much.
And we wish you well with your work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, to our viewers, that's it from the Evening Review team. Thank you for staying tuned. See you again tomorrow, same time, same place. Have a pleasant evening.